Okay, so we left off in the middle of a very profound thought, and that is that even when a person uses their BECHIRA, their free will, and it looks like they have a plan of action and they know what they want to do, sometimes their legs will carry them elsewhere. Meaning that just because you make a firm decision to do something, it doesn't mean that it's always going to work out the way in which you expect it to work out. And that's something that a person has to keep in mind. And it doesn't detonate the free will that we have. And it doesn't mean that Hashem is removing your free will. It just means that we used our free will, we tried to do what we're supposed to do, we made our efforts and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, God still has the ultimate reign on this world. And when certain things need to happen in a person's life, or the nation's history and so on and so forth, sometimes even though we put in our effort in one place, sometimes it'll work out in another way. And he brings down over here a beautiful idea. It says in the Torah that when the Jewish people were traveling in the Midbar, in the wilderness, it says that Moshe wrote their departures for their journeys. And then it says, and these are the journeys according to their departures. So he wrote the departures for their journeys. And then afterwards it says, these are the journeys according to the departures. So you can hear already that the verse, in the same breath, is telling you departures come before the journey. And somehow also, the journeys can come before the departure. So how does that work? So he brings down from Rabbi Horowitz, who was the Rosh Hashiva of Gateshead in England. He says, in one hand it says departure precedes the journeys, but then the order is reversed, the journeys precede the departures. So listen to the beautiful idea he says. He says the departure for a journey aims at a particular destination. When I'm going someplace and I plug into my Waze or my GPS or my Google Maps, whatever it is, where I want to go, so I'm putting in the destination. Before I begin to go, I put in the destination. That's where I would like to get. So I'm departing with a certain destination in mind. However, he writes, and then the one departing has a particular journey in mind. But only after the journey has been completed does it become clear where the departure in reality was aimed. I go on the journey. Imagine, you're going on some kind of a trip, a vacation, and you have in mind exactly where you're going. You have the whole itinerary. Everything's supposed to work itself out. Exactly where it's going to be, so on and so forth. You're going to be at 2 o'clock, you're going to be here. At 4 o'clock, you're going to be here. You're going to get on the train at 9 o'clock, and you're going to go over here. And you're going to stay in this hotel, and you're going to be over here, and you're going to do this, and you're going to be in this restaurant, and so on and so forth. Everything is all planned out. But as everybody knows, once that you actually get into the reality of the traveling, so things don't always work out exactly as you planned it to work out. You don't always end up exactly in the place where you thought that you're going to be on that day at that time. Sometimes there are delays. Sometimes you get on the wrong train. Sometimes there is X, Y, and Z. Sometimes you thought you're staying in this hotel. It turns out they overbooked and they don't have room for you. All many different things that take place. And therefore, it's only after the journey has been completed does it become clear where the departure in reality was aimed. And often the destination is not the one that was intended at the point of departure. Even though that when I'm leaving, I'm expecting myself to end up over there, but it doesn't always work out like that. And sometimes that's where you end up bumping into somebody that you haven't seen in 20 years because you ended up veering from the actual plan of your journey and you ended up someplace else at that time. That's why you bumped into this person over here. And that's why this happened. And that's why that happened. And that's why it worked out like this instead of like that. And that's why they bumped you up into a first class, because you ended up on this plane instead of that plane over there. Hey, you have no idea. But you won't know where the journey was supposed to take you until the journey itself has been completed. Which means that even though when you were leaving at point of destination, you thought you're going here, however, now that the journey has taken place, now you realize that when you were embarking, you were really embarking to go over here. You just didn't realize at the time of embarkment that's where you were heading. So on one hand, says the verse, the destination, the departure comes before the journey, because when you're departing, you already have in mind where you want to end up. But after the fact is over, then you can see that the journey that you were involved with might not have been even close to what you thought that it's going to be. And that's the journey of life. As he writes over here, we choose in the world, but we do not necessarily produce the results that our choices aim at. We choose and we think, I'm making a decision, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. How do I know? Meaning, I use my free will, I make the effort, I try my best to keep along that path, but at the end of the day, Hashem is in control. And sometimes He's going to veer off over here, He's going to veer off over there, He's going to put things around the back door like that. We choose, and our choices are ours, but events in the world march to a destination that is the result of more than human choice. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has an ultimate plan of this world, and we are making our decisions and our choices, and many times in our lives we will see, I thought that because that I did this, the result is going to be this, and it's the actual opposite result of what it was going to be. I thought I'm going to make a decision, I'm going to go in this direction, and so many things happened while I was on that path over there, suddenly I find myself over here. I thought I'm going on this vacation for this reason over here. It turns out I ended up meeting a person on that vacation. As a result of that thing, the person that I met, it ended up becoming a lucrative business deal some other time. How could I know? I'm going for this, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's running it. I think I might have told over this story several months ago, but this is the idea of we plan and we try to do so many things, and Hashem has the ultimate control over everything. There's one of the big speakers in the Jewish people today, his name is Rabbi Ephraim Waxman, and he tells over the story about his father-in-law. I think his father-in-law. His father-in-law lived on like the outskirts of the villages of maybe Czechoslovakia or Poland, and they were trying very hard during World War II to escape from there, to be able to get out of the clutches of Hitler and the Nazis. And the route that they had to take was they had to get to France, and once from France they could get a visa, and once they would get the visa, then they could board a ship, and that ship would end up taking them to England, or however, I don't know if the ship, whatever it is, they would be able to get to England, and then they would be able to live peacefully during World War II in England, where it was protected from the whole war that was going on. And that was the plan. So they make their way, and they get to France, and he's got a wife and quite a few kids already at the time, and he has their passports, and he has to get to the visa house, and he wants to go, and he wants to be able to get everybody out of there. So he's walking through. They did have to take a boat to get out of there, out of France. So he's walking down the docks, and he sees a guy who looks somewhat like a captain or something like that of a ship, and he says to the fellow, he says, "Are there any ships leaving in the next few days to England?" And the guy says, "As a matter of fact, this ship over here is leaving tomorrow to England. I'm the captain of the ship." He says, "I have room." He says, "You just come with your passport, or you come with your visa stamped by the embassy over here." He says, "I have a big ship. It's empty right now. I can take as many people on the ship as you want to. Just make sure that you're here tomorrow morning by 8 o'clock, and we're embarking. Okay? The man now rushes to and the guy tells him, but by the way, you should know all of you Jews are trying to get out of here. The embassy is swamped with people. Good luck getting a visa before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So this man starts rushing towards the embassy. It's the English embassy in France. And as he's getting closer and closer to these throngs and throngs of people, hundreds of Jews that are running for their life, trying to get this last visa to get out of there to get to England, are all trying to get in there. There's no way to get in. There are security guards that are pushing people back. At the gate, they said, there is no more room. Get out, get out, get out. We can't take any more people. And this man says, please, Hashem, this is my last chance to save myself and my family. Please, Hashem. Shortly after the words come out of his mouth where he asks Hashem for salvation, suddenly there are thunderclouds roll in, thunder and lightning, a pouring storm and shower comes down, and everybody starts fleeing in all different directions. Even the security guards start fleeing in different directions. And this man says, this is my chance. He sees an open path straight to the doors of the embassy. He runs to the embassy, and the next thing he knows, he's working in the line. He gets pushed in, and he's standing there sopping wet at the door, up the staircase, heading in to the embassy. He knocks on the door. There's nobody else. The door opens up, and it's just him and the head of the British embassy. And he says to the man, please. He said, I have a wife and I have children. We're running away from the Nazis and Hitler. Please, give us a visa and let us get out of here. I have a boat that's waiting for us tomorrow. Please save us. So the man says, okay, Rabbi. He says, just give me your passports. I'll take care of it for you. The man reaches into his pocket to pull out the passports that he was sure that he had taken with him, and he realizes that he left his passports at home with his wife. He drops into a dead faint. He screams and faints on the floor. They put some water on his face, they bring him to, and he says, passports! And he faints once again. And finally they wake him up, and the man says, what's the matter? He says, the passports! I don't have my passports. I left them with my wife. I can't believe this. And he begins begging the man, please, please, I beg of you, please, please. So he says, listen what I'm going to do for you. He felt so bad for him. He says, I'm taking my own private stationery, and I'm writing on here, I give permission to anyone's name that is on this paper, a visa to travel by ship to the UK, whatever, and I'm putting my official stamp and my signature over here. Here's the visa for you and your family and your wife to be able to go on the boat tomorrow. The man cannot stop thanking him profusely. It's a miracle. He walks out of the embassy, and then he realizes, wait a second, it says anyone whose name is on this paper has a visa granted by the embassy, signed and stamped. And the paper is blank. He says to himself, there's hundreds of Jews that want to get out of France right now. I could sign anyone's name that I want on this paper, and I found the captain of the ship who says he has an empty ship tomorrow. He said, bring me whoever you want. So this man goes on that day, and he finds every Jew that he possibly can, and he puts their name on the paper. And he says, meet me by the docks tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We're getting on a ship, and our lives are going to be saved. And sure enough, the man shows up at the docks. There's over 250 people with him. The captain says, what's going on over here? He said, you told me you have room for as many people as you possibly can. He says, you have a visa for everybody? He says, here's the paper. Everyone's name is on here. This is the visa stamped with the seal of the embassy. And all 250 Jews get onto that ship, and they sail off to the UK. And instead of being killed by Hitler, Yamach Shemo, and the Nazis, they all ended up going into freedom and safety. So Rabbi Ephraim Waxman said, what looked like it was the worst day in my father-in-law's life ended up being the greatest day of his life, and it saved hundreds of other Jews. And he says, my father-in-law and his family kept in contact. There are thousands of descendants from those 250 Jews that were saved on that day. Thousands. Because of a mistake, ended up being the best thing in the world. He set out in the morning. His plan was, I got to go get myself a visa for my wife and my children. Hashem says, I have bigger plans for you. You're going to bring back a visa that's going to save 250 other Jews and their family and their descendants for hundreds, thousands, for who knows how many generations. That's what he's saying over here. We have a destination in mind. We're departing in the morning. We're on our way. You never know where life is going to take you. Does that mean you don't have free will? No, I have free will. I know where I want to go. But Hashem also has a plan of where it is that you have to end up, where you have to go, where you have to head out, and so on and so forth. And therefore says Rav Tatz, that's what a person has to keep in mind. Your job is to make your decisions and set the course and the GPS and the ways where you want to go. What's going to happen at the end of the day? Who knows? Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. Does that mean it took away your free will? God forbid. Hashem doesn't take away free will. But sometimes there's a bigger plan. Now, once Hashem shifts things, you have to keep using your free will in the new situation that you're in the new circumstances. Got to keep using your free will and recognize that it's coming from Hashem. What does He want from me now? What does He want from me now? And see all of that. When a person looks at life like that, so then they're always on the journey that they are charting for themselves, and yet they understand that the destination that I'm going to reach is ultimately the one that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to reach. So we never give up on our free will, and we never give up on Hashem. And together, these things work hand in hand, and everybody ends up exactly where they're supposed to be.
In Buddhism, they must have taken this from the Jews. They have a statement, you are where you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
really
that's what it. Yeah, that's it.
Really what you're saying.
That's right. Everyone has stolen all the best things from us.
They steal it.